Thanks, Edel. It's funny that Edel referred to being a parent because what I've got to say is actually going to reference the fact that I feel as if I've done 3 leaving certificate exams, my own and my 2 sons who went through the place. So some of my comments are based on just that experience, and I hope to share some of that with you over the next couple of minutes. Uh, my advice is walk with him and be patient. It is a long year, and yet it is a very short year in many other ways. Uh, they face a far more complex society than we faced, at that age. The issue of social media, their behaviour on social media, sexual health, mental health, the issue of consent, the issue of respect for difference, apathy in terms of their belief, their values, not really standing up for something, or apathy in terms of their democratic responsibility. These are all things that we actually challenge them not to be apathetic, but to have views. Remember, one of the Jesuits used to say here, if you don't stand up for your values, you'll fall for anything. And that remains true today. Inspiring in them to find out, to be educated, and to be informed, and to make decisions. Sometimes we may not agree with those decisions, or we mightn't agree with their opinion. But what we do agree is that they have to make that journey themselves. So while the college does a lot, and Miss Nivrian referenced it in the RSE and SPHE programs and in the life choices, while the college does a lot in terms of addressing issues, I see it as my responsibility as a parent to address those issues as a parent with them. That can lead to difficult conversations and challenging conversations, but conversations that will often lead to a better insight into what your son is experiencing, about why they're forming a particular idea, and sometimes why they form an uninformed opinion. Let me give you an example. I've often heard students say, well, smoking weed is not that dangerous, it's not that difficult. It's very easy to access substances in our society. So we have to educate our children to make informed choices and to realize, for example, that the casual use of drugs can lead to serious mental health issues as well as physical issues. The most obvious one that Ms. Nivrian referred to is alcohol. And certainly when you look at other societies, our young people do have, and maybe the whole of society has, a pretty unhealthy relationship with alcohol. She referenced the 18th parties. The 18th party is the loss, really, of 3 days at a minimum. The day of anticipation, the day it's on, and then the day of recovery from it. And certainly the abuse of alcohol is something that is frequently, though not always, in evidence at many of the parties. Again, that's not our responsibility. We can't tell you what decisions you make in your home, but we can share with you that all the evidence suggests that early drinking does lead to alcohol problems in later life, and certainly a casual attitude towards young people not knowing where they are, not knowing how much money they have and where they spend, is frequently linked with young people having a problem. So that balance between being vigilant and supportive and allowing independence is something that is a challenge to achieve as a parent, but it is something that you must do. We have a drug testing program for students that do encounter difficulties with substance abuse. It is called into use often when the student is in difficulties in the school. However, what I would point out is that buying and selling drugs is a criminal activity, and anyone who's engaged in that will face expulsion from the school due to the protection for everybody else. So parents have a responsibility with us as well to protect children. So should you become aware of a situation where you feel somebody's endangering other students, yes, you do have an obligation to tell us. There's no culture of silence or culture of acceptance in relation to that. That's covering some of the ground, but really, to be honest with you, it is the exception where we deal with those problems, but they do occur, and we do address them. In terms of the Leaving Cert, before you know it, you will be watching your son at passing out and hopefully a physical graduation as the restrictions decrease. In other words, this year will fly. It goes faster than any other year, and it's broken up by important deadlines. And those deadlines are something you need to make yourself aware of. We communicate with you very regularly. Ms. Neilbrian referenced the parent handbook, and I'd say, again, almost all questions are answered in it. The student journal, now some students feel that they're far beyond the use of the student journal. I have a copy of it here, and if you look at it, there's a review section on it. It's a really important section for you as students to actually use. All of us can improve by writing out the plan for how we're going to improve. all of us as parents need to take cognizance of the fact that a totally disorganized journal usually reflects a totally disorganized approach to work. And if I know one thing, both as a parent and a headmaster, is those students who are organized, those students who have a steady routine, those students who do not have their phones with them while they're actually studying so that they don't get distracted by their friends messaging them, are the students that do well. Regardless of ability, students who are disorganized and work in a haphazard way never achieve their potential. There's no magic solution to it. It's absolutely straightforward. The amount of work you put in, the amount of time you put in, the amount of hours you put in, the routine you put in is directly related with the result. I'd also say, look, there are more important things in life than results. One of the most important things is that you judge how you make other people feel about themselves. That's you as a student and in the college, in your behaviour in class, on your way to and from the college, in your dealings in social media and everything else. Your actions have consequences, and hopefully your education here leads you to the understanding of that, and hopefully the conversations at home support that understanding. That young men in a complex society have to be very careful of how they behave, how they treat other people, and how they respond when somebody doesn't treat them well is equally important. So, as I said, this year flies by, and at the very heart of what we're trying to do, we're trying to help you get ready for the next phase. And the next phase is moving on to either employment, an apprenticeship, a career, university, whatever. But that is the next phase, and that next phase will commence far sooner than you think. In the meantime, please, you will get so much support and so much advice. Avail of it. Lastly, our job is to create a safe and happy environment, an environment where people are respected, where respect for difference is something that we set at the heart of one of our cornerstone values in the college. That while you may disagree with somebody, you may not appreciate what their perspective is, that you respect that, and that you also hold to your own belief and understanding, and you do so by being informed. We mentioned about being a safe environment. Yes, social distancing is still in place. Yes, masks are still necessary. And yes, if you come in contact with a close contact, please do not just come to school. We're trying to protect a large community of people. Families and homes all deserve the greatest cooperation from each and every one of us. So with that in mind, I would say the co-curricular program will be developing this year, and it is a wonderful thing also to have a balance in it. It is work, rest and play in those equal measures, but mainly work, being honest, for the Leaving Cert. So what I'd say to you is this: let's get ready for a great year. It's going to go incredibly quickly, but it will be an incredibly enjoyable year. And now I'll hand you over to Mr. Doyle.
Dear parent of Rhetoric 2022, I hope you and your family are safe and well. I want to cover some of the areas that Miss Nivreen will have gone through. I know Miss O'Donoghue, who will be following me from Career and Guidance, will be going through some of these areas as well. And I know Mr. Foley touched upon some of these areas. I suppose in relation to COVID, as was the case last year, a lot of work has still had to happen over the summer to make sure that the students and teachers are returning to a safe environment, to cut down on movement of students and interactions, and I suppose to promote social distancing. Students still have their base rooms with seating plans. Split lunches will be the case for all two sets of 3 year groups. Every part of the college we are continuing to utilise to create space for classrooms and breakout spaces. Within the classrooms, your son will be able to tell you that there's a sanitation station. The desks and the tables are the correct distance apart. You may have seen that already in some of the newsletters from last year. And as was the case last year, there's 100+ sanitation stations around the college. 3 of the year groups were in this morning and 3 were in last Friday, so they probably would have told you that they would have gone through an induction, a COVID induction, or a leaflet along with their form tutor in relation to layouts, signs and symptoms, the location of the COVID isolation room, classroom etiquette in terms of PPE, etc. Ms. Nivreen emphasised this, I know Mr. Foley said as well. Communication and collaboration. I was 6 year head for 4 years, and as the Link Deputy as well for the last 2 years. It's a huge important part of our community, and there's so much different parts and so much different resources upon which we can draw on. So one of the first resources that we always talk about is the Parents' Handbook. A lot of work goes into this, and it goes out at the beginning of September every year. There'll be little bits that just have to be put into it. Last year's handbook in terms of COVID updates or Compass or co-curricular, etc. But that's been updated, and that will go out to parents as well. And it outlines the support systems, obviously a concern in a subject, the subject teacher, the importance of the form tutor, which I'll go into more detail on later on, obviously the year ahead. And it is emphasised as well that if a student is unwell, it's imperative that he remains at home, medical advice is sought, and he does not return to school until he has fully recovered. It's important in this situation to, any worries or any doubts, just email the year ahead and you can copy in the form tutor. There's the student and parents newsletter. It's fantastic. It goes out every 2 weeks. I think it went out 3 times over the summer. A lot of work goes into it. There's a very active student group involved in it. So please take the time. You have to read through this. You can't just say, oh, well, I didn't see it, or you have to go through the different sections. But it's a very important resource. Mr. Foley mentioned the student journal, and I'm actually going to talk a good bit about the student journal. It's not just for the students, a lot of work. We're building on years and years of collaboration with the students and teachers working together to make this a really good resource for students and for parents. So look, at the very beginning of it, of course, there's COVID advice, there's the principal, school dates in terms of parent-teacher meetings. A page that I like, and it's a page that it's important to make sure that your son has filled in, is page 7. It allows him just to take a moment to map out all the support structures that are available for him here in the college. It's also that for yourself as well, that you can have a look at it. So it goes through, obviously, he writes on his form tutor, his year heads, his chaplain, his guidance counsellor, his co-curricular coordinators. So all the different people who engage with your son day in, day out, and give him that support. So it's a very important exercise, and it won't take long to do, and even if you sat down with him or just asked him to show it to you. Something else, obviously, we are using Teams a lot. It's our online platform, and that obviously was very much the case after the lockdown and after our return to school. So there's a really good crib sheet that the staff working group, and obviously they linked in with the student council, put together as well in terms of use of Teams, drafting emails, I suppose where to go if you have a problem. The help desk email address is there as well. Health and safety, a very important part of the return to school, is making sure in terms of a fire emergency or an emergency that the boys know where to go, what to do, and there are pages that have to be completed by all boys in the college. So that's pages 16 and 17, and that maps out where they go and obviously the order in which they go in relation to an emergency. Faith and service programs, Ms. Niverine spoke about. The journal, there's a lot of really nice resources in the journal in relation to our vision, our mission and our values. This year we're coming up to the celebration. I think it's 500 years since Ignatius Loyola founded the Jesuits, and the college will be taking a day to celebrate this on the 16th of March 2022. So faith and social justice is a very important, it's a cornerstone of the college, and in every year group, and obviously in the senior year groups especially, there's an extensive programme for the boys in terms of triple religion. There are the rhetoric retreats. I think there's going to be 11 different rhetoric retreats that the boys can sign up for. As Ms. Niverine said, it's not she used, I think, a la carte timetable. You can't just opt out of a certain part of the Belvedere curriculum. A lot of policies that are important as well to the boys, such as the code of behaviour, such as the anti-bullying policy, are also in the journal, and the boys are expected they go through this with their form tutor, their year heads, mention it at the assemblies once we return. There's also important resources in the anti-bullying policy, and I suppose the key thing to emphasise here is, look, as we say to the boys, respect for all is paramount, and the boys need to read through this, and also there's a section which they need to complete, and also there's a section for parents to sign as well. In terms of student leadership, it happens the whole way up from when the boys enter the college. The last week gone by, they would have had the elements induction and all the opportunities before they join the school to show leadership. We have the prefect induction, we have co-curricular leadership, we have the student council, the year councils, the class captains, the green schools, the social justice leadership. And you will have noticed as well from the student council, they put an extensive a piece together last May, and they circulated that through the parents and students newsletter, where they documented all of their actions over the course of the last year in terms of COVID, the canteen, support for new clubs, reviewing and providing feedback on the journal, school policies, their engagement with the they had very extensive engagement with the Parents Association. So please take an opportunity to go back to last May if you haven't read that piece that outlines all the great work that they went through last year. So the views of students are valued, and students, as I said, run many, if not most, of the extension programs, and they work hand in hand with the staff. So there's so much ways for the students to get involved here in the college, and we want the boys to get involved. We want the boys to make a difference. And even now, like if there's an activity that he's given up, your son has given up, and he wants to re-engage, have that conversation as well. Whether it's a social justice activity, whether it's a co-curricular club, it will complement their studies. It will allow them to get the most out of everything that's offered here in the college. There's also other sections as well, just even as a parent to be aware of. There's a great literacy and numeracy section that's been added into the journal, just in terms of composing paragraphs or punctuation or just handy tips. And it's appropriate for all 6 year groups. And what's nice about this is something that the teacher group that put it together, they worked along with the students in drafting this before it was published in the journal. The 2-week timetable, obviously that's very new. It's going to offer huge advantages, and I suppose one being the ability to deliver the wide curriculum that you see here in the college. And you'll find that at the back of the journal. There's an error for periods 4, 5 and 6 in the schedule at the back. The boys have been told about this already in their assemblies with their year head and with me last week. So just to be aware of that error, I think it's just 5 minutes in the difference, and it's something that they just need to go back and make sure they're aware of, and that they have updated. Academic tracking. Mr. Vreen spoke about it and all the different times it happens. I suppose why it's important for you as a parent is that's going to be happening quite soon, and Miss O'Donoghue will be following me, and she might go into this a bit more in terms of study skills in the journal, that there is sections in the journal, and this isn't just something that teachers have put in. This is something that the guidance department along with the student council and other teachers have worked in making this a really valuable resource for students and for parents. The boys are going to be getting their house exams back in the coming week, and this will give them an opportunity to look at their house exams and whether they need to improve on certain topics or areas, and they can map these out in this section of their journal. So it'd be very good for yourself as well in terms of promoting that conversation about setting targets for the coming weeks and months. So I'm nearly finished. I suppose just to conclude, I suppose if you can, familiarise yourself with the Parents' Handbook, with the journal, even at page 7, just that very brief page that would take not even a minute to complete, all the support structures, all the people that engage with your son day in, day out here in the college. And yes, there have been a lot of changes to school life in the last year, and obviously this academic year as well, and we're hoping obviously as the year moves on that things will improve further. But look, our ethos hasn't changed. Excellence in all things and care of the person remains at the heart of everything we do, and it requires every member of the college community taking responsibility for making the best of all the opportunities that are offered. We have to share in the responsibility to make the school a safe and happy place where everyone is nurtured, everyone can excel, everyone can discover their gifts. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this recording, and best wishes for the coming year. I'll hand you over now to Miss O'Donoghue.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Good evening, everybody. It is lovely to be speaking with you again this year on behalf of the Guidance Department. So my name is Roisin O'Donoghue, and along with my colleague Angela Curran, We will be working really closely with your sons this year from a guidance perspective. So just as a reminder, I'm the Link Guidance Counsellor for classes Loyola, Kenny and Scully, and I would have worked with them to a certain extent last year. And my colleague Angela is the Link Guidance Counsellor for classes Aylmer, Xavier and Finlay. And so if over the course of the year you do have a guidance related query or you'd like to get in touch with the guidance counsellor, feel free to send an email to your respective Link Guidance Counsellor. So essentially then, the guidance programme in 6th year builds on the work that was done in transition year and in 5th year. In TY and in 5th year, the focus was really on helping students to get to know themselves a bit better, and also on exploring options that were available to them. And we spent a lot of time learning how to use research tools and learning how to find the information they needed to explore their options. This year in 6th year, our focus shifts slightly into the decision-making zone, getting focused, taking action, narrowing down our college courses or our options, creating shortlists, and then following through on the application process, be it the CAO, UCAS, PLC, apprenticeship, whatever the application is that your son will be making. So over the summer, on the back of their 5th year work, students were given the task of completing at least 10 course research sheets. Now the sheets are very specially designed. We brought them through the process last year of filling out one of these sheets and equipped them with all the tools they would need to carry out really quite detailed research of individual courses, drilling right down into course modules and key aspects of different college programmes. The research sheet is especially designed to guide them through really detailed course investigation, and then it opens up the decision-making process at the end with a pros and cons reflection. So this work that they were asked to do over the summer will form the basis of our first guidance appointment this term. So it's really important that they have it done, and it's really important that they come in prepared in order to make the most out of that first 40-minute session with their guidance counsellor. So bearing that in mind, we would ask that you discuss that work with your son in advance of his first guidance appointment. Ask him if he has it done, ask him if you can have a look at it, and maybe just discuss the kind of courses he's researched, discuss what the pros and cons as he sees them are about the different courses and the different colleges or the different options available to him. So this year we will also be supporting your sons in terms of motivation and academic progress, in line with a whole school initiative that really is focusing on supporting academic progress. So in each guidance session, there will be included a grade tracking and a goal setting session. So it forms part of every time your son comes in to meet with us. And that really helps students take accountability of their own performance. We ask them to reflect back on the last grade they got in each subject. Were they happy with it? If not, what do they want their new target to be, and how do they work to bridge that gap? So monitoring that individual progress and attainment closely throughout 6th year is a really important exercise for A, keeping them motivated, but B, for making realistic and informed decisions about possible educational pathways available to them after school. So as Mr. Doyle mentioned, we have embedded that process into the college journal as well, and we would really ask for students to support us on this so that we're all speaking the same language. So the first extended form tutor period to allow students to engage in this self-reflection process is this coming Friday. And on Friday, all students of the college, but 6th years in particular, will receive a printout of their progress report to date, their senior cycle progress report. So for your son, it will include his Christmas results and his summer results from 5th year. He'll be asked to reflect in every subject on the grade he got, whether or not he was happy with the grade, whether or not he hit his target, and then he will be asked to set himself a realistic target that he can aim for Christmas. So we take it in small chunks. So his next house exams will be his Christmas exams. And then following on from that, for every subject, we ask that he identifies 2 very specific things he can do, very specific strategies that he can put in place to help him improve his grade by 5%, 10%. And he can do that in conjunction with his subject teacher. And then we ask that you sign, as a parent after Friday, that you sign the bottom of that page along with the form tutor and the student. So it becomes a mutual understanding of, okay, this is a roadmap. This is what the student needs to do to improve his grade by Christmas. So that is on page 70 and 71 of the journal, the first student reflection, and we would ask that you have a look at that with your sons over the course of the week, and certainly after Friday when he has it filled in. So, as I said, these conversations around academic achievement, around decisions for the future, they're really important, and they need to be happening at home as well as in school if they're to have any impact at all. We do need to be on the same page here, and it really is a partnership in support of your son. So research actually shows that the most influential voice in student career decisions is that of the parent or the guardian, and actually specifically the mother, but collectively the parents and the guardians are the most influential voice according to the most recent research. So your voice is really important in this conversation. Check in with him about his course research sheets, check if he has them done, ask him about his decisions. What did he choose to research and why, and what does he think of what he found out? Just a short note on studying abroad. Each year we have a number of students who express an interest in studying abroad, either in the UK or the USA or across Europe. The process is very involved. It can take a significant amount of time and energy and attention on the student's behalf, and the costs are very significant compared to the cost of studying in Ireland. So just a word on that, it's really crucial that families have had the chance to have that financial conversation, even though it might be a tricky one. It's really important that you have talked through that as a family at home before the student embarks on the process of applying abroad, in order to avoid any disappointment. Yes, sometimes there are scholarships available, but the scholarships very, very rarely, if ever, cover the full cost of the expenses accrued. So it's just important to be realistic and be open about that before all that time and energy is expended on the application process. It's far more involved than, for example, the CAO application process. As parents and guardians then, you can access up-to-date and relevant guidance information and study skills resources on the guidance section of the Belvedere website. So the link is available on the bottom left-hand side of the website, of the screen when you log in, and it updates frequently. So all the important key dates will be available there, and there's a rolling guidance calendar month by month, so you know and your son knows exactly what's coming up, exactly what the key dates are, but also what kind of online webinars are available, what kind of online open days are available in different colleges. Really, it is a wealth of information and a really, really good resource for you to have at your disposal. The guidance department will also send you out more information about our CAO and further education information evening, which happens every year in November, just as the CAO opens for applications. So we will bring you through the whole CAO process. If your son in 6th year is your eldest, or if you just haven't had a son or daughter go through in a while, it can be really nice to get a refresher on the whole process of the CAO, but also on all the other pathways that are available. So for example, applying for PLCs or apprenticeships. We will stay in regular contact with you through newsletter updates, but also email updates at the end of each term, just to give you an update on what's been covered in the guidance department and what you should be talking about at any given time at home with your son. We will make sure that you have plenty of resources at your fingertips to ensure that you feel supported in supporting your son. Finally, just to say, we are really looking forward to continuing working with your son this year, and we will be in touch again shortly. Thank you very much.